WFM 91.7.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Big Question on Women Radio 91.7. My name is Sumto Titilayo Ajamma. We have been running a series on 16 Days of Activism on violence against women, and this started on the 25th of November, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and it runs until 10th of December, the Human Rights Day. We're still speaking on the 16 Days of Activism on violence against women, and you can feel free to contribute. The number to call is 07000-917-917. 07000-917-917. You can also send text messages or WhatsApp messages to 0703-175-6537. Today is day 11 in the series. The series of the 16 Days of Activism against Gender-Based Violence is focused on addressing issues of violence against women and girls. During the 16 Days of Activism against Gender-Based Violence, we will be reviewing some organizations' achievements and their strategies in the prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls. My guest today is Vanessa Udegbe Gregory, Program Coordinator, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund. Hello, Vanessa. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming through on Women Radio today to speak on the 16 Days of Activism on Gender-Based Violence. First, I'd like to ask, which is very simple but a basic foundational question. How would you rate our success as a country, as a country in Nigeria so far in fighting against violence against women and girls? How would you rate us?
So we have to look at it objectively, and we need to factor in our cultural and societal norms. We live in a very patriarchal society, and the imbalance is due to this. So we need to look at it from a first step and think about the ways in which we can address the general imbalance before moving on to the gender-based violence, because these stem from the cultural and social norms.
Okay. So you're saying the gender imbalance is the foundational issue here that now has gender-based violence as an effect?
Yes, that is correct.
Interesting. See, that's an interesting perspective because anyhow you look at it, gender-based violence is always being put forward as a major issue because it is. But sometimes people tend to forget the point you just made, which is the fact that the gender imbalance is what contributes to gender-based violence, as it were. So speaking on your organization now, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, what measures have you put in place to support the fight against ending violence against women and advocating for more women participation in politics? So that's two things. What has your organization done? What measures have they put in place to support the fight against gender-based violence and to advocate for more women participation in politics?
Okay, so I'll take them one after the other.
Okay.
So with regards to the measures, the NWTF works as a referral organization for victims of gender-based violence. We provide access to various channels to address GBV through different partnerships with FIDA and organizations such as Proactive Gender. Coming to what we do to fight GBV. So we have a program which is funded by the Ford Foundation, and it's implemented across 8 states in Nigeria, which are Ekiti, Nasarawa, Cross River, Kebbi, Ebonyi, Adamawa, and River State. This project provides capacity building training, followed by a 6-month mentorship program, where an experienced mentor is assigned to each mentee, and in turn they assist them with activities targeted towards addressing violence against women and girls within their communities. This year, to intensify this result, we initiated the National Institute of Leadership on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls, also called the NILVAC, in Abuja, where we selected young women across the 6 geopolitical zones, and we assembled them to build their capacity on leadership and ending violence against women and girls. After this, they have embarked on a 6-month mentorship program where each of them have implemented a micro-project, which is also targeted at addressing and sensitizing other women on ending violence against women and girls.
So these
Sorry,
are,
the third question?
yes, about women participation. What has Nigerian Women Trust Fund done with regards to advocacy for more women participation in politics?
So with regards to women's participation in politics, we have launched a campaign called Balance for Her, and it's doing with advocacy and also providing media visibility and campaign support materials for women politicians. So when we say media visibility, we know that there's high costs associated with participating in politics, which most women don't have access to. This also goes back to the inequality between men and women. So when it comes to participating equally with men, women find that they don't have the financial backing. So although we can't provide help in terms of financial help, we have come up with a way in which we can give them a platform to speak on live and national TV, and also print out flyers, billboards, and provide them with a space to talk on the radios, across the 36 states. So this will begin in January.
All right. And this is focused on getting more women into politics because that's a general point of view at this point. That's a larger picture. Yes, that's it. That's a larger picture at this point. All right. All right. Thank you very much. It's 13 minutes past 12 on Women Radio 91.7, and we're still running the series on 16 Days of Activism against Gender-Based Violence. If you're just tuning in, my guest today is Vanessa Udegbe-Gregory, Program Coordinator of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, and we're still focusing on the 16 Days of Activism on violence against women. Now, we're focusing on this in commemoration of the 16 Days of Activism against Gender-Based Violence. Today is day 11, and it's an annual campaign or an annual international movement aimed at addressing issues of violence against women and girls. Now, we're running this all the way through to 10th of December, which started on the 25th of November. So we're still doing this, and we're still talking about this, trying to gather and lend our voice and the voices of these different organizations that we'll be reviewing on their strategies and achievements in line with the prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls. Now, we're coming back to Vanessa Udegbe-Gregory, Program Coordinator of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund. The number to call to ask her questions, or to ask questions in general or to contribute, is 07000 917 917. 07000 917 917. Go ahead and send text messages or WhatsApp messages to 0703 175 6537. 07000 917 917 is the number to call. 0703 175 6537 is the number to send a text or WhatsApp message to. All right, Vanessa, I'm coming back to you now. And let's talk a bit about what you hope to do more of, as an organization as part of the struggle to end gender-based violence. We know that you've outlined certain things that have been done already, and this tells me that your organization, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, is passionate about making impact, particularly as it pertains to women, whether in line with the gender-based violence or in line with more women participation in politics. But what more do you hope to do, or what do you hope to do better going forward?
We released a joint press statement last week in which we emphasized the critical need for stricter security measures to be put in place ahead of the 2023 elections to address gender-based election violence. So in this press release, we asked for to prevent and proactively respond to incidents of violence against women before, during, and after the forthcoming election. But that was put out last week, and we're hoping we get a response soon.
Absolutely. So after this press statement, I would like to ask with regards to, with regards to violence against gender-based violence, what your organization intends to, let me phrase it this way. Is there anything you're currently working on that going forward you intend to continue working on that can pertain or that is pertaining to gender-based violence?
Yes. So going forward, we're discussing pushing for a joint task force committee on the safety of women as candidates and electorates, which comprises of the relevant security agencies, and then make a commitment to release publicly accessible, comprehensive prevention and emergency response action plans on all forms of violence against women. So this is a conversation currently on the table. Unfortunately, I'm not in a place to share where we are, but hopefully, soon enough, we will be able to show the evidence in the form of the commitment from the security agency.
Okay, understood. I understand that. Thank you very much for sharing at least that particular information. So, thank you very much for that. Are there stakeholders that you would love to work with? Are there stakeholders, people of influence that you would love to collaborate with, that you can use their own area of expertise to pass the message and spread further the message of advocacy on ending violence against women and girls?
Yes. Currently, we work with organizations such as FIDA, the Women's Aid Collective in Enugu, to address reported cases of gender-based violence. Looking forward, we would like to engage with the Nigerian police and other security agencies. The reason being that victims and survivors of GBV are often afraid to report their cases to the police. So we would like to build a relationship of trust so that the appropriate procedures can be carried out.
That's a very interesting one. And hopefully that really works out for good, because that would make a lot of difference in the world that we live in today.
Yes, it would.
All right. So what would you term your challenges? The Nigerian Women Trust Fund is an organization that focuses on women participation in politics. But as you've said, you're also a referral organization or a reference organization for cases of sexual and gender-based violence. So what would you say your challenges have been as an organization that could potentially have hindered your advocacy at some point, or that actually did hinder your advocacy at any point?
So the challenges and the efforts to eliminating violence against women in Nigeria can be deemed twofold. So we have cultural beliefs as well as gaps within the legal system. So as I've said before, GBV is rooted in the imbalance of power between males and females, but progress has been slow in changing the deeply entrenched inequitable social norms. And as I said before, these gender norms help sustain inequity-based violence. So we need to strive for better support systems for victims of GBV. This is prior to entering and also within the criminal justice system. So this can be done through minimizing secondary victimization and improving conviction rates. So again, cultural beliefs in terms of power struggles in different relationship dynamics, including parents and their children, the way they raise female children, very different to the way males are raised, husbands and wives, various situations. And also we don't have the culture of believing victims. This goes for like agencies as well as individuals. When a woman claims to have been raped, the first reaction is, what were you wearing? What were you doing there? We don't have people saying, you know what, stop. Let's listen to her story and find out how we can help. We're so into the what, the why, and never the how. So that proves difficult because that also makes people insecure about coming out with their stories. People also are worried for the repercussions and the stigmatization. So the cultural beliefs and also processing cases through the legal systems would be two challenges, I'd say, that hinder our progress in the fight for GBV.
Again, that is very understandable. We live in a society where culture is held.
I'm so sorry, I can't hear you clearly.
Yes, I said that's a very good point, because we still live in a society where culture is held very highly, and some of these gender norms are influenced by culture. So to a large extent, you make a very valid point on that one. Let's talk about the kind of support that the Nigerian Women Trust Fund renders as an organization towards providing for supporting survivors of gender-based violence?
Okay, so at the moment, NRBTF is a referral organization. So when cases of GBV are reported to us, we offer technical assistance on a case-by-case basis. So we are able to refer each case to the relevant organization that will be of help in that specific case. We are looking at providing much more support than referral systems in the future. That is one of the things currently on the table at the organization at the moment. But as for now, we offer referral services.
Understood. Thank
So
you
we have
very
a very
much.
good network of partners across the 36 states and the SBT, which we are able to rely upon when the need arises.
So, if survivors decide that they want to prosecute or they want to take cases down the line of legal prosecution or the legal direction, what would the role of Nigerian Women Trust Fund be?
So we would refer them to lawyers who we work with, who we know are experienced with handling these specific types of cases. But when we hand over the case, we don't just say, okay, you've been passed on to the lawyer, you and the lawyer from here on out. We follow the case each step of the way. We're able to offer guidance, assistance, support, just an ear to listen to it if you need that. So it just varies on the support you need, and we find the best place to put you to help you and guide you.
Absolutely. So how about for shelter, for instance? Shelter, maybe a means of income to build their capacity.
So there are various organizations across Nigeria that offer these services. So depending on the state you are in and just your location in general, we have a list, a database which we refer to, and one person might need multiple services, which may be provided at one location or across multiple locations. So it's an assessment on a case-by-case basis.
Oh, fair enough. Understood. Thank you very much. 24 minutes past 12 on Women Radio 91.7. This is still the series on 16 days of activism on gender-based violence. We're talking about this in commemoration with the 16 days of activism, and today is day 11. And if you haven't been talking about gender-based violence or educating yourself on how far the scourge or the menace of gender-based violence has eaten deep into our society, then I hope that this program is doing that for you, giving you more insight into how far gender-based violence has gone in our society and how organizations like the Nigerian Women Trust Fund and other organizations previously spoken with have contributed in the prevention and elimination of gender-based violence. Today we're focusing on the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, and my guest is Vanessa Udegbe Gregory, Program Coordinator of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund. Once again, the number to call is 07000 917 917. 07000 917 917. You can also send in a text message or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. All right, coming back to you now, Vanessa. Talking about stakeholders, I'm referencing what you said earlier about stakeholders. Do you think that international organizations, or let me put it this way, do you think that more local organizations need to be collaborated with as opposed to more international organizations, or vice versa? All right. So we're reconnecting with Vanessa, and we're focusing on the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. This is especially important because we're commemorating the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence as a part of the international annual campaign aimed at addressing issues of violence against women and girls. This campaign began on Friday, 25th November, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and it runs until the 10th of December 2022, the Human Rights Day. It is imperative that we discuss this because gender-based violence cases have been on the rise. And it feels like the more we talk about it, the more people know what it is, the more people understand that violence against women and girls should not and is not and should never be an acceptable phenomenon, then the more hope we have for the future as regards actually eliminating sexual and gender-based violence. It is important that this conversation be had because it's a violation against human rights, and sadly more women and girls tend to be at the receiving end of gender-based violence, which is why we're having this conversation in line with the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence. My guest today, as we round of conversation very shortly, is Vanessa Odegbe Gregory, Program Coordinator of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, still focusing on the 16 Days of Activism on violence against women. So Vanessa, can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you very much. So I was asking that in line with organizations to collaborate with, we talked earlier about stakeholders, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in line with that, I was asking if you would prefer to collaborate with more local organizations to make more impact, or you prefer to collaborate with more international organizations. Now, the reason I ask this is a lot of times people tend to focus on collaboration with international organizations because they feel like a lot of funding goes into this and it can make more impact, more larger impact in our local society. Are you of that point of view, or where do you stand on collaborating with either local or international organizations?
So I think we need a good mix of both for multiple reasons. So pro-circular.
Okay, please go ahead. I can hear you.
Include access to funding and also access to expertise that we wouldn't ordinarily have. So it's like almost like a blueprint being given to you.
Mm-hmm. So like a good mix, as you said, of collaboration with local organizations and international organizations.
Meaning on the expertise, as other societies have experienced this, and we're all at different points in the fight against GBV. But then you also need to collaborate with local organizations because there's an understanding,
Harper's 12 on Women Radio 91.7, and we're still discussing 16 Days of Activism against Gender-Based Violence. The Nigerian Women Trust Fund is the organization that we're reviewing at the moment, and we're focusing on what their achievements have been so far. We've spoken on that, and we've also spoken about what measures they put in place to support survivors of sexual and gender-based violence and to give them the required support or the required assistance that they need to get back on their feet if they've already been violated. So Vanessa, on a final note, what is your call to action and commitment on behalf of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund as an organization? 07000 917 917 is the number to call. Send in a text or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. 07000 917 917. Send a text or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. You'd agree with me that it's not just a function of the 16 Days of Activism against Gender-Based Violence that we're having this conversation, but we're also having this conversation because more light needs to be shed on the rising cases of gender-based violence and more initiatives or more measures to further prevent and eliminate the tide of gender-based violence. Vanessa, can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can.
All right. So as we round off, what is your call to action and commitment on behalf of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund?
So the Nigerian Women Trust Fund is committed to ensuring a society where men and women contribute their quota towards national development that is void of any form of discrimination or subjugation. As a society, we need to break this unacceptable attitude which stems from the belief that females are not as important as males. Violence against women is an infringement on their human rights, on which we must not be silent. To remain silent is to accept the act, to be an accomplice in the pain and the death that arise out of GBV. Let us all stand together and denounce the acts of the perpetrators of violence.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Please enjoy the rest of the day.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Organizations like the Nigerian Women Trust Fund are here to ensure that women enjoy the human rights and see that discrimination and violence against women and girls are addressed, irrespective of their age, tribe, or religion, and are also given full political representation. So, if you notice any form of abuse against women in your community, make sure you report to this. Let us unite and be deliberate in eliminating violence against women and girls. Special thanks to my guest Vanessa Udegbe Gregory, Program Coordinator of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, and to you for being a part of the Big Question today. For joining us on the Big Question. Thank you to the producer, Elizabeth Akwerigbe, and to the executive producer, Tomo Okewale Shonaya. Thank you very much for tuning in. And remember to continue the advocacy against sexual and gender-based violence in your locality or community. Thank you very much once again. I am Sumto Titilayo Ajamma. Good afternoon.